And getting it set up here. It's taking a minute. That should work. Maybe. All right, all right. Oh, that's not good. Fix that. Hey, what's up, everybody? So, um, that's true. So this is an attempt to sort of highlight some of the changes that I am trying to make. So I set this up deliberately. So what you're hearing right now is the microphone through my Beats um, remote. However, for my remote setup, I of course have some Rode wireless mic navs. So I am going to switch over to my lavalier mic, and that should sound a lot better. And then, so again, this is designed to be very portable. And then, instead of using, this is the integrated webcam with my laptop. Instead, yeah, so this is the integrated cam with the webtop, and this is my OBS. So this should look a lot better, it does seem to be. And of course, it's also in full HD. So all in all, it should be a much better experience than what we traditionally have when I go live on the road. Because when I'm on the road, traditionally, I just use my laptop. I used to use my headset defaults, and I used my my whatever, big and blue, greeny and blue. What is people talking about? Teal. Why are people saying teal and green and blue? Are those just random colors that you guys are shouting out, or? Oh, you're talking about the color balance. Okay. Yeah, so this is a new camera for me. So right now the white balance is on auto. So let me turn that off. Why would you do that? Okay. Okay. So that should make it a bit more on spec, give or take. All right. Yeah, I don't know why the auto was so bad, but luckily we know how to fix our own white balance. I mean, we can mess around a little bit. This is obviously too orange. Let's cool it down. Yeah, that looks okay. Anyways, so yeah, so the reason, well, like I said, when they installed my fiber optic cable a month ago, which has been great, by the way, they installed it, but the person who ran the cable just, there were like literally fiber optic cables draped all over my development because they were just putting them down. They weren't buried at all. And so obviously then it got really, really small, really, really cold and a lot of snow. So the lines were just buried under the snow for like the last month or so. And finally today, they came out this morning with a digging machine to bury the lines, and they buried our line, and of course we lost internet. So I have no idea what happened. I called tech support, and they said sometimes it gets cut, sometimes it whatever. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a YouTuber. I have to stream. So I thought, okay, well, I can't stream from my normal setup without the internet. So I said, okay, well, let me cancel the stream. And I said, well, maybe I'll come on later and I'll try to do a remote setup, and I'll go to some place. So I actually went to Starbucks just to get a late night coffee, and I figured I would test my remote setup from Starbucks because it represented a sort of uncontrolled environment. You know, right now I'm sitting in the studio, obviously, so I have my studio lights on and it's pretty quiet in here. But then I get to Starbucks and YouTube was down, so I couldn't go live at Starbucks either. So came home, and finally I saw that YouTube was back up, and I said, well, I did want, and my home internet never came back on, so I am streaming off of my Tether. And so it's not a 100% true environmental specific area, but it is, you know, it is. Yeah, YouTube was down, I think, for a couple hours. Or at least I couldn't, it was down for me. And according to Reddit, it was down for people all over the world, so. I have AT&T. I just switched. I was a Spectrum customer for like 20 years, and they never got fiber optic. So I said, sorry. So when AT&T came into our neighborhood and finally offered up fiber optic, I said, I'm making the switch. And I did. So, yeah, there we go. I don't think this is working. Let me try this. No, I don't think that's working. Let me try this. Live stream overlay. Where is the overlay? Overlay. No, okay. How do I get the URL for the overlay? It's been so long since I've done this, I don't remember. Overlay. Streaming chat and overlay. Okay. I guess that's it. Copy link. Why should I be careful? Why is that not working? Okay, that's just the chat. Oh, here we go. Featured chat. Featured chat overlay. That's what it's called. Okay. Let's do that. No, I don't give a shit about you. There we go. I've heard sharks like to eat fiber optic. No sharks in my neighborhood, at least. This is my laptop. I have a Dell XPS. But as I was saying, this is my integrated webcam from my Dell, and this is my microphone through my earbuds. So this is what my remote live stream would normally look like. And obviously I would, I would probably make this fit. There we go. So that's the quality that you would normally get in terms of audio from me and from my microphone. But obviously I have better technology, so that's the idea. Obviously my camera is still, attached to my laptop, so it's kind of... Anyways. So, the reason why I was doing this, I also have this, which I don't think I'll need, but this is my little, this is one of my remote lights that I use. It's pretty cool. It's magnetic. So you've got your base light here, you have a grid attachment, and then you also have a diffuser attachment, and they can all kind of magnetically lock together. And I use this one. I bought this when I bought a bunch of lights that were on sale at Christmas time. When I bought those tube lights, so... Do I have a portable second screen? Yes, I do. But I've had those for a while. I used to have those for my work computer. I just can't work off a single monitor. I can't do it. Let's see. Right, we're not cavemen. We have the technology. I am interested, though. This new webcam that I picked up. Before I do have to switch. This new webcam that I picked up is it's very small, but it's a full PTZ, right? So it pans, it tilts, it zooms, and in theory, it has some AI features, supposedly, that lets it it lets you it tracks you if you're presenting or something like that. So I'm kind of curious to see how well that works. I know, it's very annoying how it does that, and I don't know why it does that, but it definitely does that. And it does that for me too, which is a real problem because then I don't get to see, all of you guys. So, also, I should note, most webcams, due to the size of the sensor, always have a little bit of a green magenta shift to them. So obviously that's also a reason why there might be some more green magenta. So Tim, did you get everybody's headset replaced with over-ear instead of on-ear, Derek? La la la. No, Tim, I did not. And the reason I did not is because I haven't figured out what to get. Okay, what does that mean? So the thing is, I bought those 3 headsets in like June of last year because we were going to do the Daggerheart game, and they're way past the return. And I told the guy, I said, I want to exchange them. And he said, I can't really do that. And I said, okay, well, can I exchange them? I'm trying to get something cheaper, actually. Those headsets were like $400 and something, and the headsets that my group wants are the cheap, worse, old ones.
and they're only like $250. So it's going from $1,200 to like $750. And he said, or something like that. And he said, the thing is, I said, well, I said, he needs to make it in order to make his like returns department happy and kind of sneak this under the radar, he has to make it an even transaction. So in other words, I need to buy $400 or $500 extra worth of stuff in order to sort of balance it out. And I said, cool. And he said, well, maybe I could just send you 2 extra micro headsets. And I said, no, I really don't need extra headsets. And he said, okay, well, get back to, look what we have, get back to me. And I said, okay. So I started looking and I went, okay, this is a rare thing for me to say. I said, but I don't need anything right now. And I'd hate to just get something. I said, well, can I get a gift certificate or something? He said, no, it's got to be like inventory in, inventory out. And so unfortunately, I haven't made that exchange because I've been like trying to wait to see if there was something that popped up that maybe I needed, and there hasn't been anything I've needed, so I haven't gotten it yet. So that's where we're at, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, again, it's going to come eventually, but I also didn't worry too much about it because I figured at worst it was going to be, one extra session of people having to, I mean, I've seen people complain before, but I mean, you would think that I was, putting I was putting you guys in the vice, especially Bob and his brother. They were sitting there like, it's like, all right. Like, it's not a torture device, it's just an on-ear headset. And by the way, this headset is about half the weight of the other headset that the guys want. So it literally weighs like nothing. But apparently, and it's also got this real, it's a spongy thing here, but apparently this is like torture to Bob and his brother, and apparently Tim. But I think it's less of a torturous thing for Tim. It's more of just like not Tim's preference. But Bob and his brother are like, I don't know. I guess they have massive ears, which you would think would be a problem because how do the over ears fit them? I don't know. Anyways, they must not sell light. I have so many lights. I have more lights than I need. Is the truth, actually. 100%. I have more lights than I need. Because I bought a bunch. They were on sale. I bought a bunch, and it was. I have more lights than I need, especially because I'm in my bedroom studio. I mean, this is like nothing. Here's the thing, Cineboss. Me buying an extra headset and giving them away at a stream is actually probably not that helpful because 95% of people, maybe more, literally couldn't use these headsets. You need a 1/4 input TRS jack for your audio output, and you need an XLR 3-pin XLR input for your audio input. So unless you have a 1/4-inch TRS and a 3-pin XLR, they are dead weights to you. They do nothing. So I could give away the headset, but then you'd probably have to go buy a $200, $300 audio interface, which you probably don't want to do either. So that's the problem. The only thing I've ever sold to patrons is I sold some of our old studio cameras before I upgraded to these new ones. I did sell those. So, Cineboss, it's a rare occurrence. But remember, I had bought enough lights to light a 1,000 square foot studio, maybe not 1,000, 800 square foot studio, and now I am in conservatively a 200 square foot bedroom. So, I mean, I have just so many lights. I have lights in storage. I have mics in storage, just because we were set up for a completely different situation with so many more different lights, you know? But yeah. John, I said 90, 95%. I accept that there's 1 in 20 or maybe 1 in 15 or 1 in 10 of you that actually have a, you know, quote unquote, real audio interface. Memento Mori. Oh, by the way, just in general, you know, obviously this is a remote setup. This isn't my permanent setup. Personally, from my view on the OBS, for a visual, it looks pretty good to me. But how is the sound, I would think? So Memento Mori says, out of genuine curiosity, why headphones with onboard mics versus external dedicated microphone setups around our table? So we used to do that. And the reason that we don't do it is threefold, Memento Mori. Number one, we downgraded the size of our studio. We are now in a bedroom. So it's a smaller space. It's a cramped space. So when you start adding in 4 or 5 microphone setups, which usually involves a big dynamic mic, a boom, all the cabling, it just eats up a lot of real estate from the shots of the people getting, you know, the camera shots, but also just from you personally being able to play at your space. So that's number one. Number two, none of my guys who have been on the show, with maybe the exception of Bob, were ever really doing this enough or treating it seriously enough to really get what I would call good mic etiquette. And to be clear, it is a difficult environment to have good mic etiquette into. Because most of the time when you see good, and in fact, I would probably say that 90% of them, I would say all my guys, would be really great at mic etiquette in a traditional podcasting setup, which is what you see, you know, on the internet. Because you're standing, you're sitting, you're just talking into a microphone. Okay? You're just sitting there, you're talking to a microphone. But when you're playing a game, when you're playing an RPG, you're moving around. You might be reaching forward to grab a miniature or grab dice. You might be looking down to access or write on your character sheet. You might be looking away while you address another person. So all these things make it way more difficult to have good mic etiquette, especially if your mind, right, is on the game and you're really focused on what's going on. So that meant that because we're using, you know, what you traditionally see in a podcast, a big dynamic microphone like a Shure SM7B, which is, you know, we have those, or an RE20, which is what I currently use at my desk setup, an Electro Voice RE20. Or like a Shure, you know, like a Shure 57 or 58 or whatever. Any of those dynamic microphones. If you go off axis, even a little bit, you're going to hear the massive drop off. So that's number two. Number two is mic etiquette and, you know, all that other stuff. Number one is, you know, it being in the way and getting in everybody's way. And number three is kind of an aesthetic thing. I just never liked the big bulky microphones in the shot. I think it sort of took away from the look of the visuals. We tried with our initial studio setup to try to get the microphones out. We tried to do mounted arrays of microphones. We tried to do lavalier microphones on all of the talent, and we never got good results. You know, there was too much noise, pickup, cross patterns. It was just a mess. So I kind of gave up, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna have these big, gigantic, you know, microphones. But then I discovered these Audio-Technica broadcast microphones. And again, these are headsets, I should say. And again, these are not cheap. You know, I think these are ATBPHS 2s. Yeah, so these are about $400. Looks like they're down to like $380. So this is an expensive piece of kit. But what they're designed to do is they're designed to be used for broadcasters in a booth, in a noisy environment, you know, a broadcast booth at a game. Now, granted, you know, the people in like the NHL or the NFL, I mean, they have $1,000, $1,500 headsets. This is probably what I would call like a college level. So, you know, I would still say it's professional, but it's not like super high-end professional. But it is a broadcast microphone. So it's a big dynamic capsule, but it's portable, it's light, and I can, do the whole, we can, have all that and not take up a ton of space. But more importantly, it doesn't take up a ton of room at the table. It doesn't take a ton of room in the shot. And then when I get somebody on the microphone, okay, now keep in mind I'm going through my lavalier microphone, not this. But if I do have someone on the microphone and they go over here, or they go over here, or they reach over to grab a miniature, they are always going to be on mic. So that is, that's the advantage. So that's why we did that. Hopefully that answers your question. I hope. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Had to put it away. See, this is why I don't like the auto correction. There we go. Semi-pro is how I would describe that. Yeah, for sure. Okay, taskbar settings. Do not combine. Oh, okay, that's why. Agile Monk. So I am going to be traveling a lot in March. It was nice. January, I went on my emo cruise. February, I was home the whole month of February. It was great. But unfortunately, March, I'm going to be traveling quite a bit. So my group, normally March for me has one travel, and that's Vegas. My group, my buddies, have always gone to Vegas for March Madness, either the first week or the second week. We've been doing that for many years. So that's one of our go-to trips. And again, it's my friend, we play kind of strategically, and so he's got platinum status at MGM, so we get free comped rooms, and it makes it a pretty cheap trip for us. Now, you still spend money, especially if you gamble. Luckily, that is something, or unlucky, I suppose, that is something that, now I still like going to Vegas, I still like being part of the action, and my friends will price adjust, and we can play together. Basically means we both put money into a machine or onto a bet table, and we just split the wins and we split the losses, because they understand my financial situation, right? It's not last year, it's not the year before that, right, where I had a full-time job and I was making good money. So unfortunately, going to Vegas does have, it's not quite as fun and freewheeling as it used to be. I have to go there with a much more strict budget, but it is a really cool, fun trip that I always go on. I love Vegas. I love going with my buddies. It's a fun trip. So anyways, I wanted to go. However, that week that my group is going to Vegas is also the week of PAX East. Okay, the one in Boston. And I went last year, it was later in the year, but this year it's earlier. And Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat wanted me to work it. And he wasn't going to be able to be there. So it was just going to be me and Mark, and he was going to pay for it and pay me to do it. And I was really like, I really should do this. One, to help out Stephen and Mark, but also two, I could either go to Vegas and lose money or go to Boston and make money at PAX. And, I'm nothing if not practical. Take care, Tim. And we'll see you tomorrow, buddy. So I said, okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, guys. Well, then, while that was happening, Stephen Glicker said, hey, do you want to go to GaryCon? I'm going to GaryCon. Now, GaryCon is a convention that was created after Gary Gygax's death to celebrate Gary Gygax. It's held in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And I wanted to go. It's just never really worked into my schedule. It's just at a weird time of the year, and I've never really had I've always wanted to go. And Stephen hasn't gone. I think he went last year just as like a consumer, and he really liked it. And he was also kind of like, I could be big man on campus there, because it's not a huge con, but he's got Deathbringer. He's the publisher for Deathbringer, and Deathbringer is definitely a GaryCon kind of game. So Stephen Glicker's going to GaryCon. He's got a booth. He's got his premium setup, and he said, "You want to come to GaryCon?" And I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Okay, well, we're going to GaryCon middle of March." And I said, "Okay, cool. I can make that work, and then we'll go from GaryCon straight to PAX." And I said, okay. Well, then Steven said, I'm not going to PAX. He goes, I don't really want to, I don't want to run the show without me there. I don't think that's fair for you guys. And, it was not, it's too much going on with Gary Con. I don't want to be running around. And so I'm not doing it. So, I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, all right, so I'm doing Gary Con. Now I'm not doing PAX. Okay, I can go to Vegas. So I told the guys, I said, I can go to Vegas if I buy a flight. Then Steven says, hey, since you're not going with me to PAX, do you want to go with me to Gamma? And Gamma's at the beginning of the month, March 1st, March 2nd. And Gamma, of course, is a trade show. It's a game manufacturers association. So it's not for public. It's for retailers, distributors, and publishers to kind of hobnob, network, meet people, look at the new products, have, for retailers and distributors to see what publishers are coming out with in the next, 6 to 12 to 18 months or whatever, and to kind of get information. It's really aimed at the manufacturers and the publishers or the store owners. And I said, he goes, it would be really helpful. You could come. He's like, this is the kind of stuff you need to do if you want to take this serious. He gave me he gave me the Stephen Glicker pitch, and I said, he's like, it's in Louisville, and I said, Louisville's like a 5 and change hour drive for me, and I said, fine, I'll go. But suddenly, I am now going to be gone from like the first week of March. I'll be here like most of the second, like an extended second week of March, and then I'll be gone the third and the fourth week of March. So I'm going to be on the road for basically 3 of the 4 weeks of March, with some brief stops at home. And number one, in the YouTube business, if you miss, you can't not stream for that long. Your channel will self-destruct. And number two, streaming is an important source of my income. If I don't stream, I don't get tips, I don't get super chats, and I don't get new patrons, I don't get my exposure, and there's a very serious, dire financial consequence. So that means I'm going to be having to do a lot of streams on the road next month. So if I'm going to be doing that, I wanted to, see if I could get my Edward, thank you.
Edward tipped $30. A design stream was so much fun. I'm sad I wasn't able to watch live. Thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you, Edward. I didn't mean to say that I needed a tip for this stream, but I really, really appreciate you doing that. That means a lot to me. But I'm glad you enjoyed the ADHD stream. It's so funny. We did the ADHD design stream, which was just a late night, shit stir stream. And then we also did that stream where we started talking about the Legend of the Five Rings. Yeah, that's just because my desktop audio is really quiet. Edward said, ADHD design stream was so much fun. I'm sad I wasn't able to watch live. Thank you for all you do. Sorry. Again, there's a couple things in my onboard setup that aren't 100% set up. But as I was saying, there was this, we had the ADHD design stream, and then we also had just that random late night stream where we started joking about the Legend of the Five Rings design paradigm. And I got so many comments from both of those streams with people being like, this was excellent. And I was like, I don't understand my audience or YouTube. That's what it really came down to. I don't understand audience or YouTube. Let's see here. How easy hard would it be to play Monster Hearts with no GM? I don't think that's possible in PBTA. I don't think that's possible. I don't know. Does Pulf like old school games? I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's take a look together. So this is the Gary Con window. I'm trying to see if there's like is there like an event list? I would think that there's be an event list, right? It's a month away. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here in GaryCon. Let's see here. We've got first edition AD&D. Do we have this by? Do we have this by setting? Yeah, here we go. Game system. I don't care about the duration. I don't care about the room. I don't care about the number. Okay, so here we go. We're really looking at the right-hand side here, right? So we've got Dungeon Crawl Classics, Pathfinder, 5th edition D&D, Old School Essentials, 1st edition AD&D, 1st edition AD&D, Alien RPG. Wow, a D&D 4th edition. D&D, Boot Hill, Castles and Crusades, Dark Tower, DCC, 5th edition, Call of Cthulhu, Hackmaster. Let's see here. Car Wars, Vaesen, James Bond, 007, 2nd edition D&D, Shadow Dark, Castles and Crusade, AD&D, D&D, Swords and Wizardry, Tales of the Valiant, X-Crawl Classics, the One Ring. Nice. What do we got here? The Wonder of the One World. The Dwarven chieftain Flonar has gone missing. The hero's search will take them across the Vale of Gold into the great halls of the dwarves and perhaps to the foreboding gates of an ancient Angmar fortress. Ooh. Vast Grim, Beck Me D&D. So you get the gist here. I mean, it looks like it's a lot of D&D. Pirate Borg, a bunch of organized play. Yeah, so it's really kind of, I would say old school, old school coded. Doesn't look like we have. Here we go. And the exhibitor list is not super long. It's only like 30 or so people. But it's like Chaosium, a lot of art people. Free League is there. Goodman Games is there. Gooey Cube is there. Jeff Easley's at Kenzer and Company. Limithron, Mythmere. Roll for Combat, obviously. Arcane Library, obviously. Wizards of the Coast is actually there. Go figure. So yeah, a lot of old school. I mean, it is pretty on the nose about what it is. That's for sure. Hackmaster? That's insane. Who would actually play that game? Now that you mention it, Hodop, it is fully my intention, now that we have this studio space, to eventually do a Hackmaster in person game. Oh, because I don't think Pulf plays old school games. I don't think. I don't think there's any games that Pulf would play. That's what I was trying to say. Defiant Volunteer says the camera on my laptop is pretty good. Really? That's a mood. That you think that's pretty good to you? Wow, all right. I mean, respect, I guess. I personally think this looks like shit, but that's just me. But it's good to know that the I figured the earbud sound would not sound good, so Yeah, there's probably a guest list, I would imagine. Autographs. Jeremy Crawford, Troy Jennings, Brom, Margaret Weiss, Jeff Grubb, Luke Gygax, Tom Wham. I don't know Tom Wham. Kelsey Dion, Skip Williams, Ed Greenwood, Keith Baker, Amanda Harmon. Errol Otis is going to be there. That's hot. John Peterson, Eric Mona, Todd Stashwick, Stephen Medway, Mike Merles, Jody Nye, and Bill Fawcett. So that seems to be the celebrities that are there. I have about like 10 things signed by Margaret Weiss. Well, the cool news, the good news, is that I am going to a Darrington Press party at GaryCon. No, at Gamma. I'm going to a Darrington Press party at Gamma. And so I'm hoping that I can talk to people there about stuff. But I don't know what he would possibly tell me that would, be exciting. Tasty Trekkie, Gary Gygax is dead. However, his sons are not. And Luke Gygax is one of his sons. He has several sons and several daughters. Actually, he may have 2 sons and 3 daughters. That sounds right. He has Ernie Jr. Gary Gygax's first name was actually Ernest. There's Ernie Gygax, Luke Gygax, Heidi Gygax, Cindy Gygax, and I think there's one more Gygax. I think. It might be just only 4, but I think it's 5. So. Anyways. And by the way, the reason why we were stalking Paul lives in that neck of the woods. I mean, it depends on the game. But generally speaking, I prefer dungeon crawls. I mean, I like dungeons. I think they're cool. But I mean, again, it always depends on it always depends on the type of the game and how good the system is. I will say, I tend to not like cities. The only city adventure, or the only game that ever took place in a city that I really enjoyed was Blaze in the Dark. Because the city, ironically, that city felt like a cool city because you couldn't leave it. Right outside of the city was basically death in the wasteland. So, in a weird way, being trapped in the city made the city more cool. Made it cooler. Did Ernie Gygax die? Oh, he did. Oh, he was 65. Wow. I did not know that. I must have missed that. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Ernie, Ernie, had some pretty despicable takes and opinions. Apparently, he was kind of connected to sort of the alt-right game at the end of his life. So, but yeah, I did not know. If I did know, it skipped my radar. To be clear, I mean, he died When did he die? He died beginning of 2025. I think my dad was dying actively at that time, so that's probably why I missed it. So he did die in February. He died at the end of February 28th. He died basically February. He died basically March 1st, 2025, and my dad died 2 weeks later. So, yeah, I don't think I was really paying attention since my dad was in the hospital and dying. And then, luckily, after my dad died, I was only like 2 weeks later that I got let go to my job. So there you go. That's probably why I didn't notice that he died. I was kind of juggling some other stuff. But, Ernie Gygax, Ernest, if you rearrange those letters, you get Tensor, and that was the name of one of his characters. So Ernie Gygax was where we got Tensor from, which is kind of cool. And so there's that. I was always a fan of the floating disc myself. I'm in my studio. This is my home studio. This is the other part of my bedroom, basically. Actually, my camera can rotate now because it is PB. So I should be able to do this. Tilt. Pan. Woohoo! Anyways, there you go. But yeah, that is that's where I normally. This is where I normally stream from. Right there. But I don't have home internet right now. My home internet is out, so I have to be connected. And believe it or not, my home PC doesn't have, it won't connect to my hotspot of my phone, so I wouldn't be able to stream anyways. Although I don't know that I would trust a full real stream to my to my phone. Nor do I know if that would be able to handle the bandwidth of doing like a full multi-stream. But anyways, I'm going to be traveling a bunch, so I wanted to check out this situation. Yarn's floating disc. Anyways, I got a bunch of people excited about my stupid, silly ideas for games the other day. It made me kind of like almost interested in actually doing work on them and creating them, but I don't know. It's still just so. I mean, I saw what did I see today? Are my windows open? My windows are both open. It is where's my phone or my watch? I took my watch off. It is 39 degrees out, but I have both my windows open. You have to remember that with the computers in here, the lights in here, it's on the second floor. It's it's pretty warm. Plus I'm a Midwesterner, so 50 degrees is almost shorts weather. So 40 degrees is basically, light jacket weather. But yeah, almost interested. The needle has moved, everyone. Well, I saw that there's some. I've been seeing ads for it, so obviously there's a marketing campaign for this. But I saw that this cozy, witchy RPG tea shop or something. I don't even know what it's called. Witchy tea or something. I don't know what it's called. I can't even find it because it's so obscure. Pumpkin spice. God help us. Pumpkin Spice, a magical cozy RPG. I remember seeing advertisement for this over the last couple of weeks on my feed, you know, on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, I mean, obviously there's a cool visual aesthetic there. It really reminds me of the Lo-Fi Girl, although I realize that I'm talking to the people who may not know who the Lo-Fi Girl is. There's a YouTube channel that just plays lo-fi beats. And that's it. That's the Lo-Fi Girl. And that's all she does. It's just, this is the whole channel, Lo-Fi Girl. And so I was kind of like, oh, somebody, so it's very popular. I mean, I listen to it. But you know, there's like a whole fandom over Lo-Fi Girl. Anyways, so I was like, oh, okay. So this game is Lo-Fi Girl .game. You know, like that definitely had lo-fi vibes. You know, there's definitely kind of an aesthetic here. You know, I mean, there's a little there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this is the most hipster thing I've ever seen in a role-playing game, but doing your own vinyl pressing of lo-fi music probably is the most hipster thing I have ever seen in a game release. Ever. And that's saying something. So anyways, they're doing a vinyl pressing of lo-fi music. And I was like, okay. Now, look, I think the art's great. I mean, it's definitely got an aesthetic. It's not 100% my vibe, but, you know, it's definitely Lo-Fi Girl aesthetic. And again, I listen to Lo-Fi Girl. I mean, I love doing it. But anyways, I was like, okay, you know, this is cool. Like, I'm sure it'll do, you know, no, it's at 225,000 euro. So what is that? Almost 300K? And I was like, I know nothing. I go, anyone who comes to this channel hoping that they will learn something about role-playing games, I'm sorry to inform you, I know nothing. I was wrong about everything. I apologize. Thank you, and good night, and have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time on Night's the Last Call, except we won't, because I'm going to cancel the channel. You know what? In some ways, this is going to sound terrible, okay? I don't usually say this, okay? I'm a very, I think, self-effacing guy. I like to think that I'm pretty, I think that I'm pretty humble. I'm pretty open about, you know, what I know and what I don't know. I encourage dissent. The other day, I was, we were at racquetball, okay? And the community center that we play racquetball, it has 4 racquetball courts. And, you know, like the young kids, the 12, the 13, the 14-year-olds that are there after school, they like to go into the racquetball courts because, you know, they can close the door and it's more private. And I'm not saying like they're going in there to make out, but, you know, they can just horse around and be kids or whatever. But they have, you know, they have in the past fucked up the courts a little bit. They bring drinks in there, they spill stuff, they leave it, the boards warp. You know, they're kids, they're horrible. Anyways, so the other day we're there and we're playing, and there's these young boys, and they're horse playing, and the one kid's trapped inside of the room, and the other kids are pulling on this little tiny ring that keeps the door shut that you use to open it, and the one kid's pulling on it, And I snap at them, and I basically tell them, I was like, guys, seriously, stop it. Stop fucking around. And I snapped off at them because I was like, you're going to fuck up the court. You're already fucking up the court. You're going to fuck up the door. I go, there's only 4. I can only play racquetball at one of these 4 locations. You guys can horse around and fuck around anywhere you want, please. And, it was just a snap reaction because I was just like so sick of these kids. But then, I was like, immediately, I was like, please, guys, seriously, like, look at me. I go, I'm fat, okay? I need this racquetball. If you take this racquetball away from me, I'm going to die, okay? Please, don't let me get any fatter. And the kids started laughing, and they were like, we got you, bro. We got you, bro. And I was like, okay, cool. Point is, it's like, I wasn't trying to be like super hard. I was trying to be like, look at me, guys, please. I need this. Please don't take this away from me. And yeah, like on a live stream, if somebody has a great point, I will correct myself. Even in the comments, if someone corrects me, I will say, this is a great point. I'll pin it. I'll put it to the top. I'll say, maybe we need to bring this up on another corner discussion. My point is, I try not to make a big deal out about what I know and what I don't know, and I'm trying to be encouraging. Okay. Why did I just say all that? Okay? Because again, I'm not trying to be horrible. I don't know, who or what, who these people are or whatever. Obviously, as a publisher, they published Lex Arcana, but in terms of like the creator and who made it, I have no idea who made Pumpkin Spice. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. If I launched a game on Kickstarter or BackerKit, and it did worse than this, which it would, I would be, I don't know, I'd have to kill myself or something. I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. To be worse than this, I would just be like, okay, well, that's it. I'm done. I'm just done. I don't know, like, from the creators of Lex Arcana. By the way, for those of you who don't know what Lex Arcana is, Lex Arcana presumes a magical Roman Empire that never fell, and you fast forward it 2,000 years into the future. That's Lex Arcana, by the way. The stats and the game are all in Latin, FYI. So clearly, Pumpkin Spice was their next follow-up. Now, this is not saying, I don't know anything about this game. But what I do know is that if I did a game, it wouldn't do this well. And that is, I don't know if I could handle that. I don't know if I can handle not beating this. I don't know if I could handle not beating this. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. If this beat me, which I think it would, in fact, I know it would, that is my, so, unfortunately that is the standard that I have. No, these kids were clearly, they were 12, 13 years old. They were in, maybe freshmen in high school or something like that, No, you don't need me. You need the creators of Pumpkin Spice. That's what you need. And I say this as a basic bitch white guy who loves Pumpkin Spice. When it comes out in the fall, I'm like, oh, ooh, fun, Fall vibes are here, guys. Yeah, it's set in modern day. I'm pretty sure it's set in modern day. Oh, okay, never mind. It is it's set like in the 800s or something like that. I thought it was set in modern day. Anyways, it's set 2,000 years after the Roman. So the Roman Empire has existed for 2,000 years because the Roman Empire was formed during, like 1200 BC or something like that. So I think that's what it is. So the Roman Empire has existed for 2,000 years. That's the deal. But it is not. It is post-Roman times because it's hundreds and hundreds of years past when the Roman Empire actually fell. Right. Yes, it's Roman X-Files, correct. Now, that's a great question, Sweet Thread. How many actual players do you come out of these backers? My guess is, minimal. No. Don't do that to me, Edward. Please don't do that to me. But number one, we wouldn't do it tonight anyways. This is not the format to do it, so forget that. Secondly, $100. Look, I need money. Is this game fireballing a Starbucks? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just need to come out with a great soundtrack on vinyl. That's the key. Yeah, so again, it's just like the financial realities of the RPG market just do not make any sense to me. And like, I get it. There are things that I want to do that I clearly are not popular, and that's okay. But I'm talking about if I did something that was popular, right? Like, yeah, like if I went and did like a Shadow, yeah, I get a good artist and I do Pirates of Shadow Deep. It's Shadow Tide. Okay, I've seen a lot of people complain about this. I mean that's really all the same, right? Brickbound. We have to answer the important questions. I don't actually think any of my poll stuff is set up here, so let me get a poll thing set up here because I don't actually have a poll thing set up on this channel. Graphical poll. Freeform, no. Multiple choice. We'll do vintage poll. Okay, I'm enabling the poll. I'm resetting the poll. I'm copying the link. And I am making a browser source. There we go. All right. So what's a better name? Pirates of Shadow Deep, Pirates of Shadow Tide. Remember, it's supposed to be a malevolent force called the Shadow Tide. Or something else for a bright, no, not grim, grim bright, Shadow Dark inspired Pirates of Dark Water gaming system. Vote now. Beowulf, you traitor. Now, of course, obviously, Shadow, the deeps, right? But see, my idea is, just like in Pirates of Dark Water, you could say, oh no, here comes the Dark Water. You could say, here comes the Shadow Tide. Here comes the Shadow Deep. I don't think makes any sense. Yeah, right. So in Pirates of Dark Water, there is a malevolent evil force that floats on top of the water like an oil slick, and it is called Dark Water. And you could be like, oh no, here comes Dark Water. Here comes the Dark Water. And it's going to come eat us. The whole idea is the same here, right? You could be like, here comes the Shadow Tide. Right? Right, you could have a Shadow Nami. Oh no, it's a Shadow Nami. Show number of votes. There we go. All right. Pirates of Shadow Tide is locked in. I do think that's better. Also, right, you could do like, I don't know, like you could do like cool templates, right, where you could have something that's called like a tideborn, right, creature, you know? See, I completely disagree with you there. Here comes the Shadow Deep. That doesn't even sound... Shadow Deep sounds like a location. For sure. So... Right, the shadow tide comes in and out in real-time hours, right? It's the tide tracker. The tide comes in, the tide comes out. You can't predict that. Nobody can explain that. Right, is it Shadow Rail or Ticket to Shadow Ride? Something like that. Now, next. Okay, better name. Okay, for our Lego Minecraft Fortnite 5e hack. Oh, what did I do? I turned my camera off. Oh, you know what? I literally did turn my camera off. That's fucked up. It has an AI feature where if you hold up your hand like that, I think it turns off. So when I went 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it turned off. Now this one I don't have as many insight into. So again, this is the Lego / Minecraft / Fortnite inspired. Look at this thing. I feel like Steven Glicker now. That definitely needs to get turned off. That is pretty cool, though. I don't know how to turn that mode off, but it is very annoying. I did something to this thing. How to get... Hey, look at that. There we go. It's now stopping to follow me. So wait, is that how that works? If I hold my hand up like this? Oh, cool. All right, cool. That's neat. Okay, neat. All right, anyways. Where are we at with the... Let's see here. Oh, but apparently that also turns it off. I don't know. Welcome. Thank you for joining the adventure. Appreciate you. Insight. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Wait, did I miss a super chat? I did miss a super chat. Damn. Tasty Trekkie. Daisy Trekkie said pumpkin spice quick start because I'm not sober. I don't have my strong. Damn, Tasty Trekkie. Well, I know what we're doing Thursday. I don't have my womp. I was distracted to notice the super chat. Tasty Trekkie, thank you so much for the absolute massive super chat. I appreciate you so much.
Edward tipped $100. I want Die RPG more, but why the hell not? The pumpkin spice quick start is only 62 pages. Maybe we'll get some Utama-like reactions.
Oh my god. Edward says, I want Die RPG more. But why the hell not? The pumpkin spice quick start is only 62 pages. Maybe we'll get some Ryutama-like reactions. Well, now I definitely have to do it, I guess. Tasty Trekkie Edward, you guys are crazy. All right, pumpkin spice it is. I guess we'll be fully locked in. You guys are nuts. 62 pages. All right, we can manage that. We can do that. First look coming in. You know what? Let's do a first look. Let's build the hype. Let's get the pumpkin spice. I'm a pumpkin spice fan, so this makes total sense to me. I like the Spice Girls. I mean, well, I did, but so I'm a spice guy. Let's go. Spice is nice. Ice Spice, that's a modern, up to date character, right? Edward, Tasty Trekkie, you guys are crazy and insane, and I love you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys a ton. And you know what? Like the modern day Kickstarter and backer credit, I go where the money is, I guess. Thank you so much. I was too distracted, but thank you so much for everything. So the names are torn. People like Brickborn, they like Brickborn, but they also like Brickbound, and maybe they like something else as well. If you call the game Brickbound, you can call the characters Brick Binders, which is kind of cool. Well, I was going to call them minifigs, but apparently that is a copyright name, especially if you use a capital M, a capital F, because that's what they are in Lego. So I was just going to call your PCs figs, to make it, very Lego aesthetic. I'm Cinnabos. I'm 100% before the stream going to go get a latte. Cinnabos, I might even order tonight on Amazon some because they don't have it at Starbucks right now. It's out of season. But I bet you I can get some pumpkin spice on the internet and have it sent to me, and then I can make a pumpkin. And I have an espresso machine in my house, so I will make a latte live on stream, and then add my own pumpkin spice to it, and I will make my own pumpkin spice latte in my house. We are ahead of the look for $200+. I mean, I gotta spice it up a little bit, right? 100%. We'll put on the lo-fi girl. We're absolutely putting lo-fi on. London says, "Oh, we're doing pumpkin spice now." Yes, London, you missed my I guess it would be my seppuku haiku about how I know that a game that I would make would do poorer than pumpkin spice, and thus I would have to kill myself. And then, of course, naturally somebody asked, "Well, how much would it cost you to review it?" And I said, "I don't know, $100." And then, of course, 2 separate people tipped it. Osily, I always commit to the bit. That's what makes me a good GM. I don't care about my ideas about what something should be. I'm not even kidding, by the way. That's actually legitimate. That's like me being legitimate. The reason I'm a good game master is because I commit to the bit and self-flagellation. I have no ego as a game master. I have no, preconceived notion. I have no, I'm in it for the biscuit. Let's go. Let's do it. I don't know if I have a turtleneck, but we'll find something. Maybe I have like a random like beanie or something. Pumpkin says I'm contractually obligated to like a game called Pumpkin Spice. Is this the most tipped first look ever? Yes. Absolutely, it is. I don't know if it can track doggos. And it all started with the crazy Tasty Trekkie, who, by the way, said the reason he tipped is because he's not sober, which I really, really appreciate. Pirates of Shadowtide shortens to post, but if it's Pirates of Shadowtide, it shortens to post or post, which is cool. But you can call it also POS. I'm okay with that. I call Fabula Ultima FU, so it works. Well, okay, see, that mode is annoying, but imagine if I was doing like presenting from a distance and I wanted you to follow me around. That could actually be very useful. To build or not to build, guys start going to lose it. So, I don't mind it. I mean, I like dogs, but so speaking of Brickborn or Brickbound or Brickborn, Brickbound, Brick Oath. So my idea, right, is it's obviously combining some elements of Wilderfeast, because I like the idea that you could, whatever, you kill a monster, and when you kill a monster, of course, it shatters into pieces. But wait, my idea, which might make VTT implementation a real pain in the ass now that I'm thinking about it, but that's okay, I think. But my idea is that the game will be designed to be played on Lego tiles, okay? And, distances will be given in studs, right? And of course, if you don't have Lego tile, you can just use, square grid. But I want people to actually use Lego minifigs. Basically, it's a way for you to use your Lego pieces as minis for the RPG. But your character, your player, will collect and have an inventory, right, of actual Lego bricks. And so like Minecraft or like Fortnite, while you're like in a combat, you'll actually be able to put bricks down onto the battlefield to dynamically shape the battlefield, creating ledges, walls, ramps, and basically just create a basically like to make Minecraft, or to make like Fortnite, while you're actually playing the game. So like for example, the GM might like make like an archer character, and that archer character is on top of like a pillar made of Legos that your characters literally can't reach. And so like you literally have to like you literally have to pull bricks out of your bag and put them onto the board. Are the bricks consumables? I don't know. I mean, we'd have to think about from the playtesting, capabilities of it. But I like the idea that like you would assign each player just so you know whose bricks are whose. Like you get yellow bricks, you get red bricks, you get blue bricks. I don't know. I mean, there's massive copyright infringement issues, and of course, like I said, I don't think it would really work too well in the VTT because you need that vertical component. But in my heart of hearts, that is what I would do. In my heart of hearts, that's what I would think would be. I think that's what would love. TTRPG using actual Legos. You just made the world's most expensive TTRPG. Cheers. Lego should thank me. Now that's a cool idea. There you go. I just need to pitch it to Lego. Now, if I can make a Lego official TTRPG, now that, my friends, would be hot fire. Yeah, I said inspired by Lego, Minecraft, and Fortnite. Right, if you're walking on yellow tiles, you get to move faster. Or I could continue to work on my Wilderfeast hack, which is so deep that at this point it's not even really Wilderfeast, except in theme. Mega game for my 20 to 30 patrons who would actually play it. Oh, speaking of which, while we're here, let's do another poll. So this is actually something I was thinking about the other day, which is, I have this, we made a game that was literally a joke, which is why we called it Dungeon Time Extreme, aka DTX. But I don't know that that was actually ever intended to be the name. And I was thinking about how if I actually launched a game with the name Dungeon Time Extreme, would that be a massive strike against it? And I think the answer is it would be. But I don't know. Obviously, my group, this group is sort of a captive audience, so they're gonna like Dungeon Time Extreme more than some of the other names. But you like how on the nose it is. I mean, it is. It's Dungeon Time Extreme. That is very true. And I mean, here's the thing. Like, it's not. It gives vibes like the game is a joke, but it was never a joke, right? It was never designed to be, right. Correct, Beowulf. Correct. I know. I've definitely had worse ideas. I'm just saying the theme of the game, right, is make the art very Adventure Timey inspired, so DTX fits. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And again, that wasn't originally the vibe for the game. The original vibe for the game was to be sort of like a but maybe we could change that up. No, it's not Super Gonzo. It was actually designed to be, well, Gonzo, no. It was designed to be a, how can I call it? An action dungeon crawler is how I would describe it. It's a dungeon crawler game, but it's not designed to be like the kind of OSR, grim and gritty, every step will kill you. You're traveling 2 or 3 or 4, feet per minute, afraid of the dark. The vibe, not like the demons and death and hell, but the vibe is very like almost Diablo-esque. Which is to say, like, your characters are kind of awesome. You're kind of going into the dungeon, you're kind of kicking ass, you're kind of taking names. You could die. There's resource constraints. You're exploring. But you're killing monsters, and you're wrecking face, and you're kind of rolling over them. The goal that I've stated, and I did this all the time. We would do a Dungeon Time Extreme game. We would play for 3 or 4 hours, and we would get through 20 rooms of the dungeon, which would usually be somewhere between 6 to 8 fights.
Casey Roberts tipped $5. Would be funny if Derek's lowest AV quality stream was one of his most profitable. Good lighting? Good camera? No.
Casey,
Nice.
Thank you so much. That would be really funny if my lowest quality stream ever was one of my most profitable, right? Who needs camera? Who needs lighting? We just need vibes, Casey, that would be really funny. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anton, for subscribing. Well, thanks, Casey. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know if dungeon parkour is the idea, but the idea is that like, I want the feeling of you actually making progress and feeling heroic. So it's like heroic dungeon, maybe not dungeon crawling, because dungeon crawling sort of dungeon blitz. George, I like the name of that. That's a cool way to describe the genre. Dungeon blitz. For sure. In fact, George, I don't know if you remember this. The name is actually mostly inspired by Wormhole Extreme, which is from Stargate SG-1, for anybody who knows what Wormhole Extreme is. And the time part, Dungeon Time, is actually from the Crime Time motherfuckers meme comic book, wherever that came from. So instead of Dungeon Time Extreme, it could be Dungeon Blitz Extreme. Even though there is no non-extreme version of Dungeon Blitz, it could be Dungeon Blitz Extreme. Because then it could be DBX, right? And DBX still sounds kind of hardcore, right? Dungeon Time Extreme, a Dungeon Blitz game. I don't. Someone would be like, "What's a Dungeon Blitz game?" But maybe, yeah, I think Blitz is kind of cool. But yeah, so for so this is literally the comic that inspired the name of Dungeon Time Extreme. This was an old penny arcade comic. And so this was the closest description that we had to the gameplay of Dungeon Time Extreme. Right? So it's like on the left, you have the traditional dungeon crawlers, right? You know, really careful, cracking in, and then in come the Dungeon Time Extreme people, right? It's crime time, motherfuckers. And so instead of crime time, it's dungeon time, motherfuckers. Shazbot says, Dungeon Blitz sounds terrible. Whereas some people say Dungeon Blitz is a great name. Pirates of Shadow Wave. Shadow Wave sounds even worse than Shadow Tide. If people think, what is a Dungeon Blitz game, they're more likely to look into it. Then bam, just one page on what a Dungeon Blitz game is. Maybe. I don't know. We'd have to look into it. Oh, boy. And then there's Nightheart, which is my domain redesign of Daggerheart. What are the other things that you dislike about Daggerheart? Tell me. What do we need to change in Nightheart? I mean, it is kind of supposed, right, Ryan? It's kind of supposed to be like NFL Blitz, right? Instead of like being all super strategic and like a real football game, it's supposed to be more like, this is fun, woo, you know? Beowulf says class. Okay, Beowulf, you're out. Classes, levels. Okay. To build or not to build says Daggerheart is too combat focused. Well, I would agree with you with that, except people love combat, buddy. They love it. Jake says, I hate the equipment system. Beowulf shockingly doesn't like that there's no skills. Now, it's interesting that you want more non-combat focused abilities. But, like, well, I don't disagree with you. I also say, like, does that make the non-combat things more fun? I mean, yes. I mean, to be clear, when I ask things like that, I'm not asking you, because I already know what the answer is going to be. You're basically going to say, make it into Pendragon, add 18 attributes, a list of 65 skills. So, this is at home. My internet is down. They tried to bury my line. Who knows what happened? Did they cut it? I don't know. So I'm streaming at home. Utility powers. I mean, that's like a very 4E type thing. I don't hate that idea. Now talk about the ancestries you don't like too, Bale. Yeah, Beowulf. Tell us how there should only be humans only. Roll for combat. Well, my home internet's down, and I wanted to test my remote setup for streaming on the road, since I'm going to be on the road so much for the next month between conventions with you and going to Vegas. So, and I was describing how normally when I stream, I am on my I'm on my headset, or I'm on my integrated audio, and on my on my laptop camera. So instead, we're on our lav, and this. Oh, Cal tipped. Cal, thank you for your tip. I don't know why that didn't show up in the thingamajiggy. Did I miss it somehow? Wonder why Stream Elements missed that tip. Anyways, Cal said, Daggerheart needs modularity. I think you're part of the way there with Nightheart. I feel like having classes and domains is overly complicated. Have a role plus 2 domains. Well, okay, played the audio, but it didn't show in chat. Weird. The issue with not having classes is when you don't have classes, the game can become, like, characters become very wishy-washy. You don't have niche protection, and also, you know, it's difficult to create mechanics that integrate well with those domains. It also becomes very possible to make bad characters. So there's a lot of advantages to having classes, for sure. Arcs is excellent, one of the best board games I've ever played. So, now, I won't argue that the classes are inconsistent. I, generally speaking, would agree with you, Shazbot. I do think, as written, the Druid is probably overly powerful, and I do think the Seraph strikes me as being a little bit weaker. Now, stop. Why did you go into tracking mode? Stop. What is... Apparently the AI is taking over. Right, but the problem is, how do you make a role integrate in a meaningful way with all the different abilities? Because then what ends up happening is you end up with, like, it's like how I always complain about dungeons that are designed, like the way that a lot of people design dungeons, the way that a lot of people design a lot of stuff, is it's just a bucket of cool encounters, right? It's just a bucket of cool encounters. And I don't want that kind of design for a game where you're like, here's my character. Oh, what's your character? It's a bucket of cool powers that are all just sort of like poured into a character. I don't want that. What is going on with my camera? For some odd reason, it will not. This is my palm, dude. Stop. It was working before. I just don't know how any of the commands for this thing. Obsbot, tiny 3 manual. I love that like cameras are so complicated now. You have to be like, what? How does this thing work? Nope. Nope. I don't want to download it. They're like, what's a manual? Like who would want a manual? There we go. Okay. I guess you have to put it to the side of your hand. Sorry. Again, I was distracted by my stupid camera. I got to definitely turn that off. There's like you can download apparently some software driver that can interact with this so you can turn off all this stupid shit. Not saying it's completely stupid, but it's mostly stupid. My Dyson doesn't have a manual. It has an app. Yeah, fair enough. Osily, super chat, $10. Midnight Muscadines, and this is also a thing. I do not know what that means. It's a book by Andrew Boyd, a cozy dark tabletop role-playing game where players are marmoteers who collect magical ingredients to make jams that keep the world's fading magic alive. It blends cozy Ghibli-esque themes with a dark fantasy world. I have not heard of this one. But to be fair, am I right in saying that this thing hasn't made $300,000? I'm going to go out on a limb and say it hasn't made $300,000. But it looks very pretty. Kind of looks like Wild Sea. Kind of. Correct, Casey. Well, that is one of the things that I definitely want to fix, right, by extending the domains to 12. I don't want to have those weird overlaps. Right. Correct, Pumpkin. A lot of people really praise, like, a lot of people who praise classless games value, like, character building over playability, which is fine. I think that's a totally reasonable trade-off to make, but I do not want to sacrifice playability in that respect. Now, the reason Cal advocates for it is because when you're class-based, you get people that want to play things outside of the class system all the time. I find that really annoying to deal with. Oh. I don't have that problem, so maybe that's why I don't think that way. So. Yeah, I mean, making it a circle, especially because you're going to be adding things like blood domain anyways and stuff like that, dread, was definitely sort of a weird takeover. And we talked about this the other day when we were looking at the circle, and we were looking at how trying to connect, it like works really well through about like 80% of the domain circle, and then when you start to try to connect it, it starts to get really kind of wonky and weird. Yeah, also too, unfortunately, if you play with people who actually are really into that type of thing, you end up getting characters that are very samey and broken. And if you play with people who don't care about that sort of things, it doesn't really matter. So they're the type of people who don't tend to want to really care or look. So I'm one of those people who really likes, I really like classes. I don't think they're as bad of a thing as people say they are. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like classless okay as well, but I mean, there's definitely games that I played that are classless, but I'm okay with people picking a lane and sticking in. Right. Whereas I think having the flavor is actually what makes a class cool. I like the idea that the game does some of the heavy lifting for you, right? And I like the fact that the game can come in and say, hey, this is what these things are in our game. I do think there is a slight problem with that. So I actually prefer classes that are more specific, right? That aren't generic. Like when a class is a thing in your game rather than a generic concept. So I actually prefer that to a certain extent. So I will say that when it comes to classes. Attributes plus skills plus talents. Yeah, it's just so much. Now, yeah, so as an example, I mean, kind of, right? Wilderfeast is kind of classless, right? And then if you have diegetic progression, okay, I think that's even cooler. I think I'll agree to that. I'll agree to that. But like having the game be like every time, it's level based, but every time you level or XP based, and then you can spend your XP and you're like, and you can get whatever you want. And you can just build whatever character you want. Like I just find that to be the most boring form of a game in the long term. I think restrictions breed creativity, and I think that there's something to be said about that. I mean, imagine Diablo 2 or World of Warcraft if you could just pick any talent from any tree. It just doesn't have the same choice. And I like the niche protection. I like that. I like it. I don't want a character that can do everything everybody can. I can do what you do, but I do it better. Like I just don't like it. Even one of my favorite games of all time, Magic the Gathering, is designed so that you kind of can't do it all, because in order to try to fit everything in your deck, you have to have 4 or 5 colors, and your deck is usually pretty bad and pretty inconsistent and doesn't work that well. So it's designed to try to punish that. Yes, that's also a great point too, Jake, and I was kind of alluding to that, which is that it's also very easy to make a very bad character, right? In fact, I would say classless games become very ivory tower. Yeah, but building your own class is the same thing as just not having a class. I mean, you're like, pick any ability plus pick any ability plus pick any domain. Pick any domain plus pick any domain plus pick any role. It's like, it's still, I don't even know how many combinations that is. Let's see. Assuming you had 12 domains, it's like millions of, of combinations or something crazy, right? When you add a multiply by roles. Whatever 12 pick 2 is. It's no, that's not what I meant. Right. 12 times 11 times 6. It's like 1,000. All right, maybe not 1,000,000. All right, whatever. I'll buy a couple orders of magnitude. Right, but then you also have 5 rolls, 6 rolls, right? You're just talking about hundreds and hundreds of of options. I think that's difficult to play test for, and again, I struggle to believe that wouldn't turn into some form of ivory tower concept. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, Cal. I'm just saying I don't necessarily Like, what if that combination, which you just described, is terrible? Because Order and Splendor don't really work well with Defender. Or what if, you know, I think Strike was very much Ivory Tower design. Plus, Osley is correct, because now you're like, well, in order to make a character, you need to know what every single domain does, and you need to know what every single role does. I just don't think it's. I mean, it's ideal, I guess, for some really super advanced gamers who favor, I guess, build flexibility over other, options. So. Callum says, I think classless really impacts introverted players, new players, or players who aren't maximizing the most efficient lane. They don't get to do something unique or impactful that's taken by min-maxers. Yeah. Right. At some point, why don't we just make our own powers on the fly using soft and hard moves and writing them on a card with a clock on each one? Now we're talking. Now we're great. Every ability is just made up, and the points don't matter. Again, this is just an area where I believe in the niche protection, and I believe in the thing. I like being able to say, the order domain belongs to the white mage and the black mage, or whatever. The wizard and the priest. I like saying that. That to me is cool. Good night, Edward. More importantly, it means that when I'm designing the wizard and I'm designing the priest, I can design it in a cool way so that the classes work well with that domain feature set, and so that the abilities of that domain feature set have that ability to sort of be interesting. Now, again, this is where, in Daggerheart at least, you have multi-classing, which you can do, once. And so if your character is a ranger warrior hybrid character that we were talking about on my grid, right, where you have like primal and blade, and you decide to multi-class into wizard and pick up order, great, but maybe those order domain cards suck with your character class. But that was kind of an opt-in choice. Whereas if you do it your way, you're making that choice literally the first time you play the game. And that's why I think that's just a little bit too extreme. Class design can be bad too. Let's not beat around the bush. But when you're playtesting a class, you're playtesting, 10 classes. You're playtesting 12 classes. You're not playtesting 176 combinations or whatever we came up with. I don't remember what the number was. If you had 12 domains, you get 132 different pairs. If you had 5 rolls, it's 660 different combinations. It's a lot to playtest and a lot to see what slips through the cracks. Let's design some more domain gimmicks. I don't have my whiteboard. How am I supposed to do that without a whiteboard? Again, my idea, my pie in the sky idea, I don't have my whiteboard on this either. I have Excalidraw. I guess I could use Excalidraw. Okay. So we were talking about the druid and the sorcerer, and we were talking about primal elemental. So in my perfect world, this would be something that every domain would have something that did something physical, right, or mechanical, right, with the cards, in a way that made it. I don't know why that keeps doing that. It's because like when I click out and then I click back, it doesn't. I have to click into the window and then hit spacebar. Interesting. So the idea is like, can there, some sort of physical manipulation, some sort of way to sort of take advantage of the fact that it is a card. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be like an exact physical, I guess I would say. It doesn't have to literally be like flipping over a card, because there's only so many ways you can physically manipulate a card. But it could be things like counters. It could be things like, by counters, I mean Magic the Gathering means like putting tokens. And again, this is something, by the way, that Daggerheart already does, right? We know that there's a number of abilities that when you use them, it says put counters on a card, number of tokens on a card. So that's cool. That's a cool mechanic that we should use, I think. And what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying, but long story short, I want there to be some sort of gimmick or mechanic that like we can interact with and make it in a cool way. So, obviously, one idea would be that like chaos would be something involving some sort of random shuffling of your cards or something like that. My idea for order is kind of tied to if you've ever played Root or Robo Rally, that in those games, there's this idea of like, you kind of like lock in your move in advance. And as long as you can do it in that order, you kind of are winning the game. You're sort of doing it better. So there's kind of I think that could be a fun idea for the game. So it's like a mini game that you get to play within your own domain system. But again, these are just, basic ideas of the game. I don't think we're actually going to come up with anything tonight. I don't even know, by the way, this may be an untenable development issue. I'm not trying to say that there is a way to figure all this out and make it in a way that is both fun while being interesting, or some combination that is, appealing to some group of people, that works in the way that I would want it to without having like, major design flaws and developmental issues. So then we can start getting real crazy. We can get old school Magic the Gathering. Okay. You ready? Okay. We can have physical dexterity manipulation. I'm just kidding. But like, for those of you who don't know, there was originally a card in Magic called the Chaos Orb. And the Chaos Orb was an artifact. And it was a card, just like anything else. And what you had to do is when you activated the card, you would take the card and you would drop it. And it had to complete at least one flip. If it didn't flip, so if you just held it and dropped it, it didn't do anything. It had to flip over once. And then whatever card it landed on, whatever cards it landed on, whatever cards it touched, were destroyed from the game, right? So now you're adding a physical manipulation element to the game. We're not going to do that, but that's an example of what you might be able to do with a card mechanic, right? Right, you start ripping up your domain cards, chaos confetti. Now, Osley says, mechanics first development is tough. Correct. This is why most people these days in role-playing games do what I like to call vibes-based design, right? Or vibes-based development. They just think of a cool idea and then they make a rule that fits the vibe. That was an actual card. Cal, it was an actual factual card from Magic the Gathering. Flip Chaos Orb onto the playing area from a height of at least 1 foot. Chaos Orb must turn over completely at least once, or it is discarded with no effect. When Chaos Orb lands, any cards in play that it touches are destroyed, as is Chaos Orb. Callum says, definitely bedtime. Good night, folks. Good night, Callum. I'm not going to be up too much late myself. I really just wanted to test out this process. Iluvata, my lord. That's tomorrow. This is the definitely no stream today. Lord of the Rings tomorrow. Now, here's the deal, folks, though. My internet cable got ran over or cut by people who were trying to bury it. And so I don't know if we're going to have internet tomorrow. So we'll see. We're playing tomorrow regardless. It just may be recorded, and then I'll post it to YouTube later. We'll see if it's live. Now we're just talking about adding Magic the Gathering cards. No, so again, and then of course the real trick is how do you make two mechanics, say for Valor and Splendor, work in such a way that the Paladin Seraph class can interact with both of them in a meaningful way. And by the way, you can tell me in chat, am I a terrible person for wanting to call the Seraph just a Paladin and just making it a Paladin? Am I terrible? Am I too trad? Am I too old school? Maybe I am. But I felt like that was one of those name changes for no reason. Like if you were going to call everything else something different, like if you were going to call the Druid, like, I don't know, the Wild Shaper, and you were going to call the Wizard, the Arcane Master, I don't know, making up some stupid word, right? The Arcanist or something, or the Codifier or the Codifician, I don't think Seraph is a bad name, to be clear, but I also feel like it's like, who cares that the Paladin is French? The Druid is Gaelic. They kept Druid in. So anyways. Bard has connotations and meanings. Also, if you wanted to replace Paladin because it had, I don't know, I guess, real-world religious overtone meanings or whatever, Seraph also has real-world religious overtone meanings, so... Anyways, I mean, again, I'm definitely not a purist. I'm not a traditionalist, as you well know. However, there's a couple things in Daggerheart that stand out to me. One, there's no priest. Now, here's the thing. Derek, I thought you hate religion in RPGs. I do, actually. I do. However, I recognize the desire and the need, I think, from a game perspective, for you to have sort of a white mage role. It doesn't have to be clear, I don't really like the cleric anymore. If I dislike the cleric, or if I hate the cleric, I dislike the priest. But I love white mages. But regardless, I thought that it was very weird that in Daggerheart that they didn't have that. The closest thing to filling that role is the Seraph, and the Seraph is most definitely not a, white mage or a priest. So I disliked that. I didn't mind that the wizard got Splendor. I actually didn't mind that. And while I do intend to split these up, I don't mind the idea that the wizard has the thing. So that was one thing that bothered me. The second was that the sorcerer got Midnight, which, as you can see, my sorcerer does not get Midnight. The second thing was, again, and I'm not a horrible person. Like I think it's cool. I think it's neat. Most rogues in the games that I've played usually end up being partially spellcasters. But I thought it was really weird that there wasn't a martial rogue, right? That the rogue had spellcasting capabilities both from Shadow and from Grace. So, one of the things that I really wanted to do in my thing here is that Prowess and Cunning, names notwithstanding, are domains that are very they're both martial domains. There's no spell casting in either of these domains. So just to be able to give you a martial, kind of that martial artist kind of not martial artist as in like a kung fu master, but like a slitter of throats. Now, to be clear, in the context of this game, this gives us space for a Prowess and Grace rogue, which I call the social rogue, partial magic, and then it also gives us ruled for a Cunning and Midnight, which is sort of the Shadow Thief more type thing, right? And again, those are just as you can see, the name is very, very specific here. Shadow Thief Gal, not really specific, but like I think that there's a cool space to have that sort of magical transversal type character. But yeah. Anyways, that is the gist of it. The other thing that I did, and I don't know that Daggerheart did this really well, but one of the things that I wanted to do is to have adjacent domains share a primary ability score. So, for example, if you are a bard, you have access to Codex and Grace. So the Codex domain is going to be defined by knowledge and presence. Okay? Knowledge and presence. Define the Codex domain. And order is going to be defined by finesse and knowledge. So you can see that as a wizard, if you focus on knowledge, you're going to be able to make good use of the Codex domain and good use of the order domain. However, there's going to be some elements of Codex which are going to have presence, and there's going to be some elements of the order domain that are going to be tied to finesse. And so as a wizard, if you had great knowledge, good finesse, good presence, you would be able to make the best use out of the two domains that you have access to. So the same idea is applied across these different ideas, because I want there to be, I don't want it to just be you pick one ability score and you're good, but I like the idea that one set of ability scores would be your primary to be able to handle both your domains. And it's usually going to be something that you would associate with that class fantasy. So for the wizard, it's knowledge. For the bard, it's presence. For the social rogue, it's instinct, which, yeah, I know it's a little bit wonky, but I mean, the bard already has a lock on presence. Again, the martial rogue is agility. The Shadow Thief Gal is finesse, etc., etc. So, yeah. Guardian is might. The hybrid warrior is instinct. The druid is knowledge. The sorcerer is presence. The basic stuff. Yeah, Jake. I mean, we could still do something like that as well, right? Where different social classes, come up. Yeah. I don't understand what you mean here, Cal. So this comes to my issue with the design approach is if you're doing classes, why not just integrate the abilities into it? I mean, you could, but the idea is that two classes share this bucket of abilities. That's the only reason. I mean, you could do it that way. Also, when you multi-class in Daggerheart, you only get access to one of the other domains. So, anyways, to be continued at some point. All right. Well, it's past 1 a.m. here. So the plan for tomorrow is the guys are going to come over around 7. If I have internet, we're going to live stream the One Ring. I think that's only going to be to the patrons. Sorry. If you want to watch it live, you got to be a patron member. We will at some point release the whole thing to the wider internet. But we're going to be finishing up the starter box adventure. And then if we don't have internet, the guys are going to come over and we're still going to play and we're going to record it instead. And we'll, post it later once I do have access to the internet. The studio is still, again, very much a work in progress. There's still cables hanging down because I still haven't finalized exact locations and stuff like that, and all that other stuff. But so far, I've been pretty happy with it. There's a couple of lighting features I need to make. I had some LED strips that I'm supposed to run behind all these windows, and I just haven't done it yet because, it's mostly just been, me in here, and now I'm going to be traveling a bunch. But the good news is, the plan, hopefully, is that we will be doing Daggerheart this year as an actual play. Now, of course, actual plays make no money, but here's hoping. And then, of course, solo play, Minds of Moria, which will be really, really fun. And from that point on, I don't know. I don't know what else we're going to do with the channel. I don't know what to do. I don't know what we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. I don't know what I am doing that I shouldn't be doing. People like first looks. Some people like the first looks, I should say. It's like, I don't feel like there's anything I do that everybody likes. And I guess that's part of the problem with my channel being very wide-ranging and having a lot of different looks. Some people hate the first looks. Some people love the deep dives. Some people love GM advice. Some people don't like it. It's interesting. Cal, yeah, what I'm saying is that every domain, spells and abilities, will rely upon 2 different attributes. And that the domain that is next to it will share one of those attributes. So if you're a wizard and you have access to Codex and the Order domain, both Codex and Order will have knowledge-based spells and powers for some of their percent. Let's just call it 50%. And so by going super high into knowledge, you can guarantee that you could pretty much use 50%. But there will be Order domain abilities and spells that use finesse, and there will be Codex domain abilities that use presence. And so you could make a wizard that skewed more towards presence and more towards the Codex domain side of things, or you could make a wizard that was more finesse oriented and leaned more towards the Order side of things. But there's one ability score for you, at least as a wizard, that kind of rules them all and makes it so that, you're good with picking knowledge. Which, again, I think is pretty iconic to the wizard. It's designed to make it a no-brainer. You're not forced to take it. And in fact, one fun thing that you could do, and it wouldn't be a dead end, but like if you were a wizard and you didn't have a good knowledge and you didn't have a good presence, you probably wouldn't be able to make good use out of the Codex domain, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas, but that could be an option. Maybe you want to be a wizard with a really high finesse and you just want to take Order domain powers. You could do that. That is within the class feature. You won't have as much versatility as other classes. There's nothing stopping you from taking Codex domain power, but the Codex domain powers are going to rely on knowledge and presence, in some mix or some tandem. There might even be some abilities that rely on both. It might use knowledge to cast it, and it might use presence to the number of counters that you get on it. What function does Order do in this version? Order in this idea is that it's basically stuff that's kind of an overlap between what you would normally think of as a cleric and a wizard. Abjuration type effects, dispel, as you mentioned, I think is going to be a big one. One idea that somebody posited, which I thought was really great and I love, is because the wizard, I like the idea kind of the wizard having healing, but I don't like them having like straight up healing. So the idea was that order could be like shields, like almost like a divine a protection priest from World of Warcraft, right? Like divine shield and power word shield, that kind of thing. And so the order domain might have like temporary HP. Doesn't really heal you. It gives you these kind of like shields. And so as a white mage, you get access to Splendor and Order. You could do both of them. But as for why Order and Splendor use Finesse, my idea of this, believe it or not, is because I view the white mage, if the wizard is all about knowledge, so this was kind of my idea. I am trying to fit certain things into certain pegs, but I do have a certain key idea. The idea of, and again, it's just called the priest/white mage because it's filling that role. I had a very strong idea of this character being very somatic. And when you think of somatic components, almost more like a channeler from Wheel of Time, right? Doing a lot of weaving and like structure, like using their hands to like make symbols in the air, to like perform, very complicated, I don't know, the Naruto type things, right? I don't watch Naruto, but I've seen the clips. But definitely for me, an inspiration was like Wheel of Time weaving. And so the idea of like weaving magic felt very finesse oriented to me. And so, the idea that you're kind of crafting and structuring. Yeah, Doctor Strange is another good example, right? He uses his hands a lot in a very manipulative manner. So I really like that idea for the white mage and as sort of being something from Splendor and Order, as opposed to relying on like raw rote knowledge. Now, to be clear, Order is finesse and knowledge. So it's like knowing how to do it and then applying it, right? So it feels very good. And so Order domain to me is very about, knowledge. And I guess I'll bring it back up since we're talking about it. So Order domain to me is very much about this idea of like knowledge and very precise movements and weaving the magic together. And that's why chaos, which is its opposite, is completely opposite. Chaos is presence and might. And I view this as being both spiritual and physical, like domination. And again, I'm inspired here by Wheel of Time, but I view chaos magic more like drawing from the true power, as opposed to the true source, which is what most, the traditional wielders draw from, where it's more of like wrestling it. If you're a big Wheel of Time fan, like Order is almost more like Sidar, and chaos is almost more like Sidin, right? Where Sidar, you have to surrender to it in order to channel it, and Sidin, it's like grabbing a torrent of energy and having the sort of force of will, the literal physical strength to like bend it to your will. So that's why chaos is presence and might. Is chaos blood magic? No, it's just, it's chaos. I don't know, like it's more primal, and I don't know. I have this idea of like a stronger character. Not like I view the sorcerers as not being these frail characters, right? I want the sorcerer to almost literally have this sort of physical presence, that he requires in order to break this stuff down. So, and if you think about it from a perspective of the game, the way I've written it, none of this is permanent. A sorcerer who was, trying to maximize their ability would have a good presence, a good might, and a good knowledge. That would give them the maximum possible access to their two domains of elements and chaos. And I think from my mental whatever about what a sorcerer is, I like the idea of a sorcerer being charismatic, strong, and knowledgeable. That to me feels like a sorcerer. You know, there's a world where this could be, you know, instinct. I'm not against that, by the way, but then that would mess up my balance. So, I mean, it could be, but again, so. But anyways, that's the idea. Correct. So yes, every class is designed to be opposite of what I think is its opposition. So for example, the druid or the sorcerer is literally opposite of the wizard. Well, I said yes. True power was the dark one's power. One power was derived from the true source, which is why it was confusing. But I said the true source. So yeah, true power versus true source. And I said, for me, chaos magic is like the true power, which comes from Shaitan, the dark one. And then the one power is derived from the true source. The true source is the creator of the force that drives the wheel of time. But anyways, the sorcerer is opposed by the wizard. The bard is opposed by the druid. The shadow mage guy is opposed by the, like if there was like a black dark mage, it would be this guy, is opposed by my priest white mage. The paladin / seraph is opposed by the shadow thief gal. The martial rogue is opposed by the guardian. The were hybrid warrior is opposed by the social rogue. So I think that those are pretty on par. The other thing too is, like you see, like I said, there's 6 abilities in Daggerheart. If you cut my circle in half, either way, up or down or left or right, you get all 6 ability scores represented. So if you cut this in half, you get 6 classes, each tied to one of the 6 primary ability scores, but it is also true on the bottom. But it's also true left to right. So it has left to right symmetry and it has top down symmetry. So every ability score is represented on top and on bottom and on left and on right. So I don't know. Do I have ADHD? Do I have OCD? I don't know. Maybe. But like, again, it's not just for the symmetry sake of it. It's also for the gameplay aspect of this, for sure. But yes, this is the Crane aesthetic, Jake. 100%. This is the Crane aesthetic coming through, because I don't want one ability score to be more valuable or more important, right, than any other. I want it to be, you know, I want there to be a balance in the force, if you will, between the two of them. Now, they're not exact mirrors, because you can see they do go in a different order, but that's okay too, because that means that there's a little bit of, a little bit of change up to it. But yeah. And I think again, there could be some tweaks and changes, but yeah, this is definitely some Crane level design. Got to have that symmetry and everything like that. So. That's true, Cal. This system is designed, you could basically create a random character fairly easy, because you'll end up with something that is going to be useful. So yeah, that's the jam. That's what I'm trying to do here. Now again, the development goals are probably untenable, but it'd be cool if you get it. And of course, people are also talking about like what would a character, what would opposites be? And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, what is, we talked about before, my circle here doesn't have a warrior, doesn't have a fighter. Number one, as a full complete transparency, I think being a fighter in today's modern RPG is kind of stupid, pointless, and boring. And the reason is because everyone's a fighter. Everyone's a fighter, because back in original D&D, the fighting man was good at fighting, and no other class was. That's what made you cool, is that nobody else could fight. The thief couldn't fight. The wizard couldn't fight. The cleric was barely, okay at it. They could wear heavy armor. That was a thing. So I would say cleric was a distant second place, and thief and wizard were terrible. Now everybody can fight. Now everybody has, balanced ACs and extra hit points and unbelievable amounts of protection, and everybody has something they can do in fighting. Every fight, even if you're a wizard, you're like, well, you have infinite cantrips and you can always use your spells, and it's not everyone is a fighter. So I don't find the idea of the warrior as like a traditional warrior to be a very compelling fantasy in a modern game. Now that being said, you could clearly combine the martial prowess of the blade domain, right, with the weapon prowess, I should say, of the blade domain